Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Word Whimsy from Cryptozoic Entertainment. This seems to have been a forgotten game from Cryptozoic. It's a party-style game, which they don't really do a lot of. And this came out in 2013 in the wake of the huge success of Cards Against Humanity. And just like Cards Against Humanity, it's in the apples-to-apples format. In particular for Word Whimsy, the one player is going to be the judge each round who has a card that has some sort of descriptive element about themselves. It could be the movie that I would love to see, or it might be like a musical group that I would love to hear, something like that, some element about themselves. All the other players have descriptive cards with just random words. Like, I'll just read a few here, like sexy, psycho, woman, lobster, hamster, just a bunch of random words, and the other players have to string those words together into something coherent that would apply to the card that the judge has, and the judge is going to vote on that. That's actually pretty much the whole game, but I'm still going to do a brief overview for you anyways. Then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, so just for the heck of it, I set up a full 7-player game of Word Whimsy. That's the maximum player count. Every player is going to get an envelope. Every player is going to get 7 cards from the word deck, the rest of which you'll shuffle up. Then you're going to have the deck of prompt cards. You'll shuffle those up. And then you have the point chip stacks. These are all in stacks of 1 through 5, and that's really the easiest thing to do at the beginning of the game rather than have them all in a big pile. And if you play with less than 6 players, you're not going to use the 5 chip. If you play with less than 5 players, you're not going to use the 4 chip, and so on. That will become a little more clear as to why we do that as I go through the rest of the overview. But the goal of the game is to get these point chips. You want to have the most points at the end of the game, and the end of the game is going to occur when you run out of these stacks of chips. So what's going to happen is you're going to determine one player to go first, and that player is going to be the judge for the first round. When you're the judge, you ignore your word cards. You're not doing anything with them. You're just going to draw a prompt card off the top of the deck, and then you are going to read it aloud, and that is the condition from your point of view that the players are trying to appeal to. So for instance, this card I just drew says, reality TV show pitch, blank and I share a downtown apartment together. Or it could be $1 million business idea. Or it could be gets me all hot and bothered. Or in a war for the fate of the universe, I would ally myself with blank. Or I would like to see the player on my right battle this. Or, good one. Okay, if I were a superhero, the perfect arch enemy for me would be blank. So those are all potential prompt cards that you might draw from the deck. And every player is going to have to string together their word cards into a response that they think you're going to like. That you're either going to find funny or poignant or whatever your condition is for, for judging one of them and approving of it. They're going to string those words together, and they can use as many cards as they want from their hand. So let's say that the player next to me decides they want to use 3 cards. They're going to put them into their envelope in the order, it says here, first card to be read. And they don't really fit lengthwise. You kind of have to put them in sideways like this and put them face down. When every player has submitted their entry to the judge is going to shuffle up all the envelopes and then read them one by one. Now on these word cards, wow, that would actually be a pretty... I randomly chose these, but let's see. If I were a superhero, the perfect arch enemy for me would be... Well, I'd probably do this in a different order. Naughty, sensual servants. Okay, that's not that funny, but at least it's somewhat appropriate. So those are some examples. They're just random words. I mean, there's tons and tons of different words, and some of them are double word cards. So let me find an example of that. If you were to, there you go. If you were to use a double word card, you put it up on the side you want to use. So this one says shaved or bearded. So they usually have something to do with one another. But other examples, you have victorious, farter, inappropriate, kingdom, cyber, bunnies, hamster, munchkin. Let's see. Humper, chicken or succulent, satanic, extreme, crabs, holy, unholy, badger. You're just trying to string all of these, out of context words together into something that either makes sense or is just funny and applies hopefully to whatever the judge has out there. Now, once every person has submitted their entry and the judge goes through and reads every single one of them out loud, the judge is going to take one of the stacks of chips and is going to put the chips on the votes that they like. So let's just say, for instance, if I can just set this up quickly. Let's say that these are the choices that I have. Something like that. So whenever you get done reading all of them, you'll have a bunch of them in front of you like that. You're going to take the stacks of chips and pick one that you like the most. That gets 5 points. Second most gets 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point. Now what this means actually is that if you play with the full complement of players like I have set up out here, you actually are not going to have enough chips, which means someone gets no points because you as the judge are one player and then you have 6 other players to judge, but you've only got 5 chips. But in every other circumstance of players, everyone's going to get at least 1 point. So everyone's going to collect their points by claiming which set of cards are theirs, because remember, this is kind of done in secret. They're shuffled up. Then all the cards go into the discard pile. Everyone draws back up to their hand limit of 7, and then judge passes to the next player, and then the next player is going to read a new prompt card. And that's the game. You keep playing until all the point chips are gone, and everyone counts up the amount of points that they have. Whoever has the most is the winner. That is Word Whimsy. Let's get to my final thoughts. Now, Word Whimsy does not reinvent the wheel when it comes to party games. It doesn't even reinvent the wheel, really, when it comes to the apples-to-apples type party games. That's probably why you haven't heard of this game. I had never heard about it until I stumbled on it in the store of my sponsor, Board Game Bliss, and decided I'll give it a shot. Now, having said that, though, even though it fits the same general template as all these apples-to-apples style games, it actually does a few things that I like better than those games that I wish those other games would port over. First and foremost is the voting system. I love it. I love the idea of not just picking, okay, this is the funniest one. All that other work that the rest of you did, worth nothing. Get out of my sight. Get out of my presence. I hate that. I hate that when I'm playing Cards Against Humanity that you might have something legitimately funny and you could watch the judge go through 5, 6, 7 entries and laugh at every single one of them, but have to choose one and you get nothing for your work. I like the idea that you just judge the best, they get the most points, but then everyone else at least gets some points. And that means that you won't be falling too far behind if you want to treat this as a game. This is definitely, like any of these types of games, it's more of an activity. You're just there to have fun. But if you want to treat it more as a game, now you can. It's in it, you know, points matter. So I just love how that works. Now, having said that, the way that they're doing it in this game with the fiddly tokens, I wish it was something different. What's it called? But wait, there's more. Another party game that came out, I think it was late last year or early this year, has a similar type of system where you vote on people's entries with differing amounts of points, and they use cards for that. I think that's a much better way to go rather than tokens that you have to constantly be sorting out. Other things it does really well. The envelope system, a lot of this has to do with components, by the way, what I like about this game. The envelope system works really well because, and that's the nature of the game, you can use many, many cards. It's not like in Cards Against Humanity where it's just like pick 1, pick 2, or pick 3. Now you can potentially use your entire hand of cards, which can be tough when you're handing them in to the judge who has to mix them all around. So they have envelopes, and that's another really interesting idea. And again, I do wish it was implemented a little bit better. The envelopes are too small to put the cards in lengthwise. You have to have them sticking out. I don't even know if that's what they intended, but that's the reality of how you have to do it, especially if you have a lot of cards. So that's a bit awkward and clumsy, but I love the idea, and I wish every game like this would do something similar to that. But what about the core gameplay here? Well, like I already said, the big difference here is that you can submit your entire hand of cards if you want, and all of the words are just like random nonsense words. And there seems to be, well, aside from, I mean, there are cards that give you dual options as well, but for the most part, it's just one word per card, and you're just stringing them all together into something in some order that you think the judge is going to find funny or poignant or whatever. But for the most part in this game, it's not about trying to be too clever. It's just trying to string together this funniest sounding phrase, which leads to a lot of bathroom style humor. Not too racy. This isn't Cards Against Humanity. This is a PG rated game, but still it's like farting and pooping, and I mean, those are in this game, those are the clutch cards that'll make something funny. And although I always found when I was playing this that the actual judge cards, like what would be a movie that I would like, that aspect of the game is very interesting. So the cards are kind of like the descriptive cards are kind of bland, but I like the idea of the cards that the judge has and how the other players are trying to riff off of that. It gives me a feel of Say Anything. Well, is that what it is? Yeah, the one from North Star games where you write down what you think is the best answer. The best answer for the judge's question, whatever they're asking of the opponents, based on what they would like. So I like that whole idea of it. I just don't like the descriptive cards that much. It's too generic, too bland, either boring or potty humor for kids, and that's really who this game is aimed at, I would assume. And the other big knock against the game is just that there's not enough of these cards. There's not enough of the judge cards, the descriptive cards or the judge cards. There's not enough. And since this game has been out for a couple of years and has completely fallen off the planet, the odds of there ever being more cards are 0. So that right there makes it hard for me to recommend this game, because I know I've played the game 4 or 5 times now and I've seen everything. I've seen every judge card come through. I've tried the variants, which are interesting to some degree or another, but not really worth mentioning. I've tried everything, and I've seen everything this game has to offer, and that is a huge knock against a party game. Party games are meant to be played again and again and again and again. That's their very nature, and I wouldn't want to play this again. But it does kind of suck that I have to say that, because there's so many interesting tidbits to it that I want to see other games really implement. And if you're the type of person that likes homebrewing your party games to a degree, coming up with more clue cards, I actually would recommend Word Whimsy, because it's a good foundation there just to add more stuff to. Maybe you can make it R-rated if you want it to be a little more edgy. Maybe that's what the game needs as well. But as it is, it's just an okay party game that needed more to it, but I love the idea. That is Word Whimsy from Cryptozoic Entertainment.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.